Are you tired of kissing the wall while taking the shortcut in Urban Canyon? Or going on a skydiving adventure on the Golden Gate Bridge in Radical Highway? Well, what about getting slapped across the face by the king of all the booze? Do you want to ride on snakes, discover hidden ways, and win the race? Well, it's your lucky day. In today's video, I'll help you cross a world of the best shortcuts, gadget builds, item usage, and much more. Other racers will have to cross worlds to be able to keep up with you. Pun entirely intended. Twice. As a sophisticated Legend 1 player, yes, thank you very much, I, for some reason, will be doing a tips and tricks video. Not that I think that I'm amazing or anything. I'll be going over the best builds, characters, gadgets, which shortcuts to take, and which ones you would wish you had killed yourself instead of taking. Is that too much? Yeah. Now, I know there are already like a million videos explaining the same stuff that I'm gonna be explaining today, but I just thought it would be a good idea to just compress them into one video. Why should you watch my video instead of the others? Well, I don't know. Maybe you just like my voice. I don't know. But anyways, let's not take too long on the intro, and I'm gonna start with the shortest one. The characters. Assuming you didn't know, which otherwise, why would you be watching a guide if you did? The characters are separated into 5 types: speed, acceleration, handling, power, and boost. Speed characters are Sonic, Blaze, Shadow, Espio, Metal, Jet, Knights, and the Pack Ghosts. These characters obviously solely focus on the speed stat, and I'm not gonna go in depth into what that means because it's obvious. Speed means go fast, and the best speed characters to rock if you want to guarantee a win most of the time, depending on how you play, are Sonic, Blaze, and or Shadow. And I said and or because both Shadow and Blaze share the same exact stats. But will using a speed character always guarantee a win? Of course not. Speed mean go fast, not be God. Which brings us to the next type of characters. The acceleration characters. Acceleration means the amount of time spent until you hit your max speed. Meaning that acceleration characters reach top speed faster than any of the other types. With the best acceleration characters based on their somewhat well-balanced stats being Tails, Sage, Wave, and... oh, I can't believe I'm saying this. But the dang Creeper. Now, should you be using acceleration characters more than the other types? Well, unless you maintain at least top 3 consistently, I don't recommend it. But I will say, I do main Sage because I find her stats to be the most doable from the acceleration cast. Next up are the handling characters, which to me are the 3rd best type in the game since they allow for sharper turns, with its best in my opinion being Amy, Cream and Cheese, Silver, and Joker. I have been rocking Amy, Silver, and Joker more often lately, and I gotta say, I've been getting pretty consistent results, especially with a handling vehicle and a boost vehicle, which we'll get to later. I won't talk much about the power characters since they're the type I played with the least, but from what I've played and seen online, the best in this category are Knuckles, Big, Omega, Zavok, and Storm. And last but not least are the boost characters. Now this is an interesting one because the only boost character in the whole game, at least until February when Whisper comes out, is Miku. But despite that, the boost category is pretty dominant, with Miku being considered to be one of the best characters in the game. I think that's saying a lot. When it comes to vehicles in CrossWorlds, it's mostly a matter of the benefits you want to get from this vehicle, like having one of the game's gadgets built in by default. For example, did you know that the power type vehicles have the bumper guard gadget built in them? Meaning you don't lose rings when bumping into walls or other players. I also recommend watching Fast Klingy's video. It explains everything you need to know about the vehicles and what they do. I'll leave a link to it in the description, and I'll try to summarize what I can. Vehicles in this game work like real-life cars in terms of switching gears. Because of this, you see speed vehicles suddenly jolt forward and steal the lead most of the time. Acceleration vehicles have better traction on sand and ice and decent handling. Handling vehicles turn like a dream and actually get faster while drifting, so you'll want to keep drifting when using one. Power vehicles have the same properties as acceleration, but better. The next one being that they don't lose rings when colliding with other vehicles or walls. And boost vehicles drift charge faster. Woo! Record time! Here we are, boys, the part that so many people are gonna hate me for. Oh boy. Now there's really no wrong or right way to creating a gadget plate. That is, if you don't want to be competitive and just want to play the game for fun. But for those tryhards out there, which I'm one of you, I'll show you some of the best gadget plates along with some alternatives you can mess around with. The stars of the show are Ultimate Charge. Grants invincibility when doing the extra 4th level charge boost. Quick Recovery. Pretty self-explanatory. You just recover from attacks much faster. Drift Charge Kit. Charges the drift boost faster and improves handling. And Technical Drift. Charges the boost faster at the cost of slipping while drifting. Now I'm not saying that you can't win without using these. In fact, you can win without even having a gadget plate. But gadgets are what make playing this game a unique experience for every player.
Now I'll show you!
Some of the best gadget plates that are used by many and especially high-level players. And starting with, of course, the meta. Technical Drift, level 2 quick charge, level 3 quick charge, and there it is. The star of the show, Ultimate Charge. This gadget plate is used by a lot of the top players. When used correctly, you could front run the entire race. Nowhere to be seen. Look at that. A lot of people hate this gadget plate and would wish death upon you and your whole family just for using it. But talking about that is, well, it's a topic of its own video, so. An alternative to this, however, is replacing Tech Drift and level 3 quick charge with a Drift Charge Kit. This plate works pretty much with every build, especially with extreme gear for the high risk high reward formula. The next gadget plate focuses mainly on gaining rings and having a good defense. I want to talk more on why you want to gain rings in the next section, but for now, the gadgets you need for this build are Slipstream Bounty, Air Trick Adept, Air Trick Bounty, and Quick Recovery. This build helps you go faster easily and recover fast from attacks. An alternative to this is replacing Slipstream Bounty and Air Trick Adept with Air Trick Expert, meaning you gain more rings by performing faster air tricks. And if you're feeling a little risky, you can take out the Quick Recovery and place back the Air Trick Adept, since you can stack it with the expert and do tricks much faster that way. Although it's worth mentioning that it's often just a 2 rings difference. And 130 ring limit. This won't increase your speed, but just in case you've maxed out your rings and you get hit, you'll still have 100 rings and your speed will remain maxed. And Ring Gain Mini Boost, giving a small burst of speed when obtaining rings. Another one I think is pretty good is Drift Charge Kit with Quick Recovery. This one is mainly for extreme gear though, and if you hate recovering fast from attacks, you can replace Quick Recovery with Handling Machine Kit. Even though this gadget is more effective with handling vehicles, it does exactly what the meta does, but in a different way. And since round 2 of the Legend Competition mode is only gonna have 1 slot gadgets, this build is a good go-to. I tested this online myself and I gotta say, it's pretty good with a power vehicle and character. I still recommend messing around with the gadgets for yourself and trying to see which gadgets scratch your brain in just the right way. For this section, I'll be focusing on how a race works and gameplay mechanics. This wouldn't be a modern Sonic game without a main gameplay gimmick, but CrossWorlds has not 1, not 2, but 3 gimmicks. Those being the gadgets, the flying boat mechanics from the GOAT, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, and lastly, the game's name and main selling point, the CrossWorld mechanic. We're already done with the gadgets, so we're gonna jump straight into how this game handles a race. This is for the most part your typical kart racer. We'll vote for a map before the race begins. Every race is 3 laps, but there's a catch. By the end of the first lap, the player in first place gets to choose between 2 giant rings, one showing a map to let you know where you're going, and the other shows a random option, when in reality they're both predetermined by the game before the race starts, but that's irrelevant. When a travel ring is chosen, it'll take you to 1 or 2 locations you would chose, whether it's another track or one of the game's special locations called the CrossWorlds. These are designed just to be played in the second laps of each race, or like I said, a main track could be chosen for the second lap if you choose the random option. This mechanic not only feels unique to this game, it also helps each race feel fresh even if you race on the same map for 2 matches in a row. And once you reach the end of lap 2, you'll be transported back to the initial track you raced on in lap 1. And that's about it for how a race works. Now onto the mechanics. Well, there are only 3 main mechanics, and almost every race takes advantage of all 3. Those being your standard racing on land, the flight mechanic, and the boat mechanic. Reminiscent of the GOAT, Sonic and All-Stars Racing transformed! When you reach specific sections, your ride will transform and everything will change. Well, not everything. In these sections, there aren't often as many hidden routes or cuts you could make. But that's not to say that you can't make your own shortcuts. More on that later. In the flight sections, controls are inverted. Up goes down and down goes up. Left and right remain the same. It may seem difficult to try and drift midair, but it's actually much simpler in CrossWorlds than it was in the GOAT, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed! Drifting in boat form, however, actually charges a jump. Jump means air tricks. Air tricks mean more speed. I'm actually still extremely in love with the fact that they brought these mechanics back from All-Stars, even if they're not exactly the same, but I love that game to death. And if you feel like you're still unable to grasp the movement in the water or flight sections, there are actually gadgets that help with that. That's why I mentioned experimenting with the gadgets for yourself. Now we reach the part that I think is as important as having a good build, and that is your game plan. How do you want to win this race? Are you gonna focus on collecting rings? Are you gonna focus on drifting? Or are you gonna bag the entire time? I'm going to tell you about what I think is the optimal way of racing in this game. Just a small warning though, I don't bag, so I don't have many examples of bagging, but bagging is when you deliberately stay behind in order to get hold of the most powerful items and keep them until the 3rd lap before unleashing rage upon the track. And that's about it for bagging, but let's not waste any more time. Remember when I said the best way of racing? Yeah, that doesn't quite exist. Not entirely, because you could be doing everything right throughout the whole race, and still end up in 7th or even last. And that mainly comes down to this game's busted item balancing. This has been an issue ever since the closed beta test released, and even though I haven't played it back then, people who did often talk about how the item balancing was holding the game back. Thankfully, the devs listened and tried fixing it in the open beta and final product. Yet, it's still an issue. But let's say that you don't face that issue and end up having a good race. What do you do to win? I personally do it like this. During lap 1, I focus on 2 main things. Maxing out my rings, because the more rings you have, the higher your top speed is. Now, I'm not exactly sure about the numbers, but I think that with every 10 rings, your speed increases by 1 to 10 units. Like I said, I'm not sure of the numbers, but what I'm sure of is that the last ring, the ring number 100, is way more important than you think. Because that single ring alone increases what 10 to 30 rings increase of your top speed. That's why you see some players zoom ahead and you wonder how they do that. And getting a good placement, usually between 1st and 5th. And if I could be the one to choose the CrossWorld, that's even better. Once I've maxed out my rings and moved to lap 2, that's when I really focus on yet 2 main things. Getting between 1st and 3rd, and staying up there, and getting good items. Now that's completely dependent on luck, unless you have a gadget that increases the chance of an item. Once I manage to get ahead of the others, that's where I would start being on my toes. If you didn't know, if a projectile locks onto you from behind and you have another projectile and you throw it behind before it hits you, you can actually stop the attack. I cannot begin to explain how useful that can be, especially if you're not using the meta build, or just in first place, where most of the items you'll get are projectiles anyway. Projectiles such as a bomb, spike ball, rocket and homing punch, the slicer, and the magnet all follow suit. Another item I don't see many people take advantage of is Omo Chow. Omo Chow is known for giving you rings, and that's about it, right? Well, not exactly. Did you know that if you pick up the rings that he gives you, you can actually drive over the off-road, just like a boost wisp and a monster truck would let you do? And did you know that using the laser and drill wisps on the off-road is faster than the actual road? Okay, but did you know that King Boom Boo can be evaded using a boost wisp? It's a frame-perfect move and it can be very difficult to react in time. You have to use the wisp as soon as he's opening his mouth. When he does, that's your visual cue to use the boost wisp and escape his devastating attack. this is it. You have learned everything. Now it's time to put this knowledge to use. It is almost impossible to win a race without taking shortcuts. But which shortcuts? Is every shortcut worth going for? What do you do in a map like Coral Town where there are like 6 different paths you could take? Should you risk falling off for a shortcut? I'm going to show you some of the most important shortcuts in the game. I'm not going to show all of them because that would take forever. And I'm going to teach you one last thing. I'm going to teach you a super useful move that'll help you handle the curves like an expert. It's called snap drifting. Snap drifting is where you drift towards a direction, counter drift to the other direction, and then immediately switching back to the direction you were drifting in the start. I'm not gonna lie, it's a hard move. You're not gonna perfect it first try. I'm going to leave a link to a better tutorial in the description because it is crucial to taking some of these shortcuts. The stars of this section are the Boost Wisps, Omo Chow, Monster Truck, Laser, Drill, Hover, Frenzy. Sorry, that joke was too good not to make. And a very special guest, the Blue Boost Pad. This very special dude only appears once to give you a boost. Literally, a lifesaver of a boost. Remember him for later. Now there's a specific rule for taking shortcuts in this game. If you see a big patch of grass, use your items. When you enter lap 3 in East Stadium, you're probably not gonna have a Boost Wisp. That's when he comes to the rescue. Yeah, I was surprised when I found that out too. Going over the Blue Boost Pad lets you drive over the off-road. It gives you a boost and takes a very special place in everyone's hearts. We love you, Blue Pad. You'll notice that a giant ring has appeared. Going through this ring will skip a big chunk of the distance. But be careful, if you don't feel like you'll be able to get the ring, don't even attempt going for it. Because if you do and fail, it's gonna be even worse than if you didn't go for it in the first place. Rainbow Garden doesn't really have major shortcuts, but did you know you could land on this patch of flowers? This can be actually very useful. You could drift off of it and then take this shortcut. In Water Palace, if you have either a Laser Wisp or a Drill Wisp, I recommend using it before transforming it to a boat, since that way you'll be going forward, meanwhile other players are going to be going upwards. And of course, the Forbidden Metal Harbor shortcut, I don't really see many people take this, despite it being extremely useful. All you gotta do is just drift to the left before these ramps, and with enough speed you'll land on the platform, and you could just cheese your way beside the gun robot. And even if you're about to fall off, you could just snap drift. See, I told you it was important. Now, I know we all know about this shortcut in Colorful Mall, but whatever you do, do not go for it. I don't even know why they called it a shortcut to begin with. It literally makes you slower. Landing on this snake in Mystic Jungle can be very difficult, but very rewarding. So I only recommend doing it if you have either a drill or a laser wisp. Crystal Mine has 2 of the nastiest shortcuts in the game. One of them isn't even that well known, and I can see why. Right on the second white pattern, use the boost and skip half the distance. Next one is pretty simple, to be honest. Either a boost, monster truck, drill, laser, everything works. Ocean View. Now this is one of the shortcuts in the game that require you to take your hand off the accelerator. I know. It's a pretty sensitive topic. Not many people know how to do that. In Pumpkin Mansion, right after the very last pumpkin, boost at the very edge of this patch of grass and skip almost the entire distance. Urban Canyon, here we are. Now you could take these forbidden shortcuts in 2 different ways. Either drift early or snap drift. Dude, whoever discovered snap drifting is a genius. In Market Street, during lap 3, instead of landing on this platform, which makes you slower by the way, you could take the normal route and then jump right before the drop, because you want to get to this ring, which skips a very good chunk of the distance. And while I was doing that one time, this happened. So apparently, you can evade King Boom Boom's attacks with boosting and going through a travel ring. Guess he's not that powerful after all. Now Coral Town has like 6 different paths, but there's only one path you could take to do one shortcut that'll help you get ahead of everyone else. Go right, left over this jelly thing, and right before this ramp, you're gonna want to be on the right side of this platform and immediately charge a drift towards the left. Make sure you jump right on the last pattern. You can do this without a boost wisp, without a laser, without a drill, without using any item. You can still use your items for backup. Now Blizzard Valley, despite it being a goated map, it doesn't really have a big shortcut, except for this patch of grass that you can just boost over. In Black Doom's favorite stage ever, I'm pretty sure you know about this shortcut, but have you tried going for this one on the Golden Gate Bridge? I'm pretty sure you tried but fell off. I found the most consistent way to do it is as soon as you land on the railing, don't go right, don't go left. Let go of the left stick. And to avoid flying off when you reach the top, do the same thing. Do not move. In Cream's favorite stage ever, it's recommended to use the drill or laser in these air trick sections. And there's this almost impossible shortcut right at the end of lap 3, which I don't really recommend going for unless you have a drill wisp. I guess a laser could work too. Dampa Factory, what I think is one of the most underrated maps, to be honest, happens to have 3 main speed factors. First is this platform, that's actually a really good shortcut, and this little water circle with the cars. But in the final lap, the factory part of the level actually wakes up, and the conveyor belts actually start working, making you go even faster when you're on them. Aqua Force gets the same treatment as Colorful Mall, where it gets a shortcut that isn't really a shortcut. Now obviously there's this tree right here, and obviously there are these dash rings right here, but in lap 3, there's a giant ring. Very easily accessible. As soon as you see it, you're immediately gonna think, oh, I should take that. No, you shouldn't. Do not take that. Kronos Island, best map in the game, no argument. Now, what I would tell you is use everything you can here over every single patch of mud, drill and laser when you're landing, and this shortcut is actually still faster without even using a speed item. North Star Islands, in lap 3, right at the beginning of the Lagoon City section, do not turn right. Instead, use a speed item to go through the wall. Warning though, without a speed item, you'll just fall off. Drift to the right to probably one of the best shortcuts in this game. I am not even gonna mention this shortcut in white space. You know what? Only take it if you have a drill or laser, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. In Sky Road, you'll probably notice these side things, so I'm not gonna talk about them. But what I'm gonna talk about is using a boost wisp right at the edge of the ramp, flying off and then getting back on the platform. Doing this saves you a couple of seconds, meanwhile everybody else is gonna be still in the air doing air tricks. In Roulette Road, aka one of the best Sonic locations ever, you can use snap drifting to take sharper turns. Now this is handling curves like an expert. And I wish I had something to say about Kraken Bay. I love this CrossWorld. Oh, actually I do have something to say about it. There's a hidden path in the second boat section that lets you get on the ship faster. In Steampunk City, there's this platform that you can very easily land on, but if you fall off, there's a somewhat hidden gear that you can get on to get back on top. Dragon Road is another perfect example of using the snap drift correctly. And did you know that you could use a speed item on this hidden patch of grass on the right side?
Dino! It's jungle! Dino! The Wicked Wild!
In White Cave, you can use these little ramps as shortcuts, although I do recommend skipping the first one because it can sometimes fling you off the map. And before you speed past everything, did you notice this little platform down here? I bet you did, but you never took it, meaning you didn't know it's faster. That is, if you don't get hit in the process. Alright, whatever you do, do not land on the trucks in cyberspace. How did King Boom Boo target me? Woo! That was exhausting. Alright, this is it. Now that you know everything about the game, you can become a pro in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. This video was a blast to make. I hope you learned something. But yeah, that's it. If there's something that I missed or didn't talk about, comment it down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe only if you like my content. Share the video with who you think might like my content. And now if you'll excuse me, I'm off grinding Dumpa tickets. See you on the next one!